The night had come quietly over the city, soft lights flickering in the distance, painting the streets in pale gold. Inside a tall, glass-walled hospital, the millionaire lay on a bed, surrounded by beeping monitors and the faint scent of antiseptic. He was known for his sharp mind, his careful control of every detail in his life, and now, lying there, he felt a rare sense of vulnerability. The accident had been sudden. One moment he was heading home after a long day at the office, and the next he was spinning through chaos, a car out of control, a crash that had left him bruised, battered, and aware of his fragility. Even in pain, even in fear, he thought clearly. That was his nature. The doctors and nurses moved around him, speaking in hushed tones, checking charts, adjusting machines. They all assumed he was unconscious. They did not know that behind closed eyes he was awake, alert, thinking, listening. His mind raced with plans, decisions, and assessments. He had to protect himself. In his life, people often smiled for their benefit, acted kindly when it suited them, and took advantage of those who could not defend themselves. Now he was powerless physically, but mentally he remained in control. The idea came to him quietly, almost like a whisper in the back of his mind. He would pretend to be comatose. He would watch, learn, and see who was true and who was not. He imagined the conversations, the visits from family and friends, the whispers from associates who would assume he was unaware. The thought of people showing their real selves in their private moments made him both anxious and curious. The nurse who was assigned to him was kind, diligent, and professional. But there was something about the way she moved, the softness in her tone, that made him want to pay closer attention. She didn't just do her job. She cared about people, he realized. And now, he could observe her quietly, without any pretense of authority or expectation. His mind replayed the moments leading up to the accident. How quickly life could change. One minute he was making decisions that affected thousands, the next he was at the mercy of others. It was a humbling thought, but also enlightening. He understood that wealth and power could not shield him from pain or vulnerability. He would use this moment to see beyond the surface, to understand people in their natural state. The first visitor came quietly, a cousin who smiled politely, leaning in close to speak softly, telling him to rest, saying he hoped he would wake soon. He listened to every word, noting the concern in her tone but also the flicker of calculation in her eyes. She wanted to be close to him, certainly, but he sensed a layer beneath the surface, a thought of inheritance, opportunity, or advantage. He noted it without judgment, simply storing the observation for later reflection. Days passed in the same rhythm. Doctors and nurses came and went, adjusting medications, monitoring vitals, keeping him alive. The millionaire remained silent still, careful never to give a sign that he was aware. His mind, however, was active. He imagined scenarios, conversations, and outcomes. He watched the faces of visitors, how they shifted when they thought no one could see, how some spoke with genuine warmth and others with polite pretense. Each gesture, each word was a story he collected, a puzzle piece revealing the true nature of those around him. He noticed the nurse most of all. She came in every day with a steady calm, her voice gentle when she spoke, her hands careful when she tended to his needs. There was an ease in her movements, a natural rhythm of care that he found remarkable. She spoke to him assuming he could not respond, and he listened to everything. Her voice carried stories of her own life, the sacrifices she made, the dreams she held, the challenges she faced. She treated her patients like human beings, not just bodies to care for, and he felt a quiet admiration. In the midst of his observation, he felt something unfamiliar: gratitude, warmth, and a sense of connection. The millionaire also overheard small talks among the staff, nurses whispering about shifts, doctors discussing treatment plans. He picked up snippets of conversations, the kind that revealed personality without intention. Some spoke out of duty, some out of curiosity, others out of genuine empathy. Each voice added to his understanding of the world he thought he knew so well, yet never truly saw from this perspective. At night, when the hospital grew quiet, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. The beeping of machines, the soft hum of air conditioning, the distant city lights, it was all strangely comforting. He thought about his life before the accident, the countless decisions he had made, the people he had trusted or doubted. Now lying in stillness, he saw the world differently. Vulnerability, he realized, brought clarity. It stripped away the layers of pretense, revealing truth in subtle, often hidden ways. And from this bed, pretending to be comatose, he could witness that truth without interference. The days blurred into nights, the routine of hospital life continuing around him. Meals were delivered, charts updated, and visitors came and went. He remained silent, a shadow observer in his own life. Each day he learned something new, not just about others, but about himself. How he measured people, how he assumed motives, how he judged from the surface. The experience was shaping him quietly, subtly, and he welcomed it. One evening, a conversation caught him off guard. Two nurses, speaking softly in the corridor outside his room, discussed challenges in their own lives. One spoke of family struggles, the other of personal dreams deferred by duty and responsibility. The millionaire listened intently, realizing that even among strangers there were depths of story, layers of resilience and sacrifice. And in that moment, he felt a shift, a recognition that human connection, empathy, and understanding were as vital as the wealth and power he had amassed. The nurse assigned to him returned late in the evening, moving with her usual calm efficiency. She adjusted his blankets, checked his vitals, and hummed a soft tune as she worked, a melody that seemed to carry warmth and reassurance. He felt a strange comfort knowing she cared, that someone noticed the humanity in him even when he appeared as a lifeless body. The realization was profound, reminding him that wealth could buy many things, but genuine human kindness was priceless and rare. As he lay there, he thought about the decision he had made to feign unconsciousness. It had been risky, a gamble, but he now understood its value. It allowed him to see, to listen, and to learn. The world had revealed itself in ways he had never seen, and he cherished the clarity it brought. Each day was an education, each visitor a lesson, each small interaction a mirror reflecting truth in its purest form. By the time the first week passed, he had formed silent judgments, nuanced understandings of character, and deep respect for those who showed authenticity, and most importantly, he realized that the nurse's presence was a steady light in an otherwise uncertain environment. He had chosen to observe life quietly, and in return, life was revealing its most honest truths. He drifted into brief moments of rest, letting the mind wander through memories and imaginings, replaying conversations, piecing together personalities, motivations, and the hidden patterns that connected people. Each sound, each word, each gesture was stored, cataloged, and reflected upon. He discovered the delicate balance between patience and awareness, between trust and caution, and he felt a growing sense of gratitude for the insights this unusual circumstance had brought. In those quiet hospital nights, the millionaire understood something essential. Being still, being vulnerable, and observing without judgment allowed the human heart to speak in ways that were impossible when one was in control. And from this bed, in the stillness of the hospital, he had become a witness to truth, an unseen presence experiencing life more deeply than he ever had before. The world outside his window continued, but inside, his own transformation had begun quietly, imperceptibly, and with profound meaning. It was late at night when the accident happened, a sudden crash that turned the millionaire's life upside down. The city lights blurred as the car skidded and collided, leaving him battered and barely conscious. By the time he was rushed to the hospital, he knew the situation was serious. He was strong, smart, and careful in life, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. The doctors worked quickly, treating him with urgency, but he felt an unusual awareness amid the pain. He could hear everything around him. He could think clearly even if his body was broken. And then the idea came, an idea born from years of caution and experience. He would pretend to be comatose. He had always known people could be complicated, their kindness sometimes mixed with self-interest. Now lying in a hospital bed, he realized this was a chance to see the truth. Who really cared for him? Who would act out of greed or curiosity? Who would reveal their true selves when they thought no one was watching? It was risky, but he felt he had no choice. Protecting himself meant observing silently, understanding the hearts of those around him without being noticed. From the very first day, he listened. Nurses moved carefully around the room, adjusting equipment, checking charts, talking softly to each other. Doctors whispered about treatments, about vitals, about the unusual nature of his case. Visitors came and went, some friends, some family, some business associates. Each interaction told a story. Some smiles were genuine, some were polite and forced. Every gesture, every tone of voice, every hesitation revealed layers of character he had never truly seen before. The nurse assigned to him caught his attention immediately. She moved with purpose, but also with gentleness, her hands precise and calm as she tended to his needs. She spoke as if he couldn't hear, explaining procedures, adjusting blankets, smoothing sheets. There was warmth in her voice, something beyond professional duty. She shared little pieces of her life too, the small frustrations, the long hours, the dreams she had deferred. He listened intently, feeling a quiet admiration he didn't expect. This was not just a caregiver. This was a human being showing care without asking for anything in return. Days passed in a steady rhythm. The millionaire remained motionless, his eyes closed, his breathing even. The hospital world continued around him, moving in its ordinary patterns. He noted how some people arrived on time out of responsibility, how others lingered longer, how some whispered in corners and others spoke directly. He realized that observing life from stillness gave a perspective he had never had before. He saw truth in its purest form, stripped of pretense, revealed in small, quiet ways. Family visits were a mix of comfort and tension. One cousin came almost daily, smiling, talking softly, expressing concern for his recovery. Yet in her eyes he saw flashes of calculation, thoughts of inheritance or opportunity. He made no judgment but stored the observation. Other relatives came less frequently, some appearing distracted, some distracted by their own lives, some filled with genuine worry. Each visit added pieces to the puzzle he was quietly assembling. He overheard hospital staff conversations as well. Nurses shared their challenges. Doctors debated treatment options. Aides discussed the small struggles of daily life. In every word there was humanity, frustration, and sometimes unexpected kindness. The millionaire realized that while he had wealth and control, the lives of ordinary people contained lessons, resilience, and honesty he had never fully appreciated before. The stillness of his bed made him a silent witness, observing the world as it really was. Late at night, when the hospital grew quiet and the city outside slumbered, he reflected on his situation. He thought about the fragility of life, the suddenness of accidents, the unpredictability of events. One moment he had been in control, making decisions that affected many. The next he was dependent on the care and attention of others. The experience humbled him, but it also revealed truths he could never have learned from his usual life of control. One evening, while the nurse adjusted his blanket and checked his vitals, he heard her speak softly, almost to herself, about her own life. She shared struggles, small joys, and quiet fears. He felt a deep respect and gratitude for her honesty, for the way she cared for people like him without seeking reward or recognition. It was a reminder that wealth could buy comfort, but could never replace human kindness and genuine attention. He also began noticing small details others overlooked. How a nurse would pause before speaking. How a doctor's tone changed depending on the patient. How visitors lingered when they were genuinely concerned and rushed when they had other priorities. Every detail was a lesson in human behavior. Every interaction revealed motives, emotions, and character. He realized that pretending to be unconscious had given him an extraordinary vantage point, a chance to observe life without interference or bias. Time passed slowly, each day bringing new lessons. Meals were delivered, charts updated, treatments administered. Visitors came with smiles, whispers, or distant politeness. The millionaire remained silent, taking in every sound, every gesture, every word. He learned patience and awareness, how to observe without reacting, how to understand without being noticed. It was an education more profound than any boardroom lesson, more revealing than any business deal. In quiet moments, he imagined conversations, reconstructed scenarios, and reflected on the nature of trust. He realized that the people who showed kindness without expectation were rare, and those who acted out of self-interest were more common than he had imagined. Yet even in deception there was human complexity, reasons for actions, struggles behind masks. Observing these truths made him more empathetic, more understanding, and more cautious in future judgments. The nurse remained a constant in his life, her presence a quiet reassurance amid uncertainty. She had no idea that her patient was awake, listening, understanding, and learning. Her words and actions carried weight he did not reveal. He appreciated her dedication, her humanity, and the subtle ways she made life in the hospital more bearable. Through her, he experienced compassion, connection, and the quiet beauty of human care. By the end of the first week, the millionaire had gained a new perspective on life. He understood the fragility of human existence, the value of honesty, and the importance of empathy. Observing silently had transformed him, teaching lessons about people, trust, and the unexpected ways in which life reveals truth. He knew that the coming days would continue to show him more, that each visitor, each interaction, would offer insight into the human heart. And in that quiet hospital room he felt a sense of clarity, a growing awareness of the world beyond wealth and control, and a profound appreciation for the people who, even unknowingly, touched his life with honesty and care. It had been 2 weeks since the accident, and the millionaire continued to lie quietly in his hospital bed, pretending to be unconscious. Every day he observed the people around him, learning more about them and about himself. He had grown used to the rhythm of hospital life, the beeping of monitors, the footsteps in the hallway, the occasional burst of laughter or murmur of concern from visitors. But it was one night, quiet and still, when something unexpected happened, something that would change the course of his experience. The nurse who had been caring for him with unwavering attention entered the room, carrying a stack of charts and a small bag of supplies. Her face looked tired, her shoulders slightly hunched, but there was a softness in her eyes that never seemed to fade. She moved slowly, methodically, but there was a tension in her posture, a weight he could sense even from the stillness of his bed. She spoke softly, almost to herself, about the challenges of her day, the fatigue that seemed to linger no matter how many hours she rested, the frustration of dealing with difficult cases, and the small victories that made it all worthwhile. Her voice carried a vulnerability he had never expected to hear, a depth of emotion that made him listen even more closely. He could hear her pause by his bedside, setting down the supplies, and then she spoke again, this time revealing thoughts she never intended anyone to hear. She confided to herself about her personal struggles, how she had worked tirelessly to care for her family while dedicating herself to her patients, how she often felt unseen, unappreciated, and overwhelmed. Her words were raw and honest, filled with emotion that was both gentle and intense. She spoke about the loneliness that came with her work, the sacrifices she had made, and the moments of doubt that crept in despite her determination to do good. As he listened, the millionaire felt something stir within him, a mixture of admiration, surprise, and gratitude. He realized that her dedication went far beyond duty or obligation. She cared for people in a way that was authentic and selfless, a stark contrast to the calculated actions he had witnessed from others. Her honesty, spoken in the quiet of the night, revealed the depth of her character and the strength it took to maintain such compassion in a demanding and often thankless environment. He reflected on his own life, the power he wielded, and the decisions he had made in the pursuit of wealth and control. Here was someone who had neither wealth nor power, yet who possessed a resilience and integrity that surpassed his own, in ways he hadn't fully appreciated. He felt humbled, recognizing the stark differences between their lives yet understanding the universality of human struggle and the quiet heroism found in everyday acts of kindness. The nurse continued to speak, sharing memories of patients who had touched her heart, moments when small gestures made a profound difference, and the sorrow of those she could not help. She confessed feelings of fear and uncertainty, the pressure of responsibility, and the constant balancing act between personal needs and professional demands. Her words painted a vivid picture of a life filled with both challenge and meaning, a life lived with empathy and purpose despite the hardships. The millionaire remained still, careful not to reveal that he was listening. Each confession added layers to his understanding of her, and to his understanding of the world around him. He realized that the strength of character was often invisible, hidden behind smiles, routines, and professional facades. He had spent years evaluating people based on appearances and outcomes, yet here he was, learning the truth from someone who believed she was speaking in privacy, unaware that her honesty was being witnessed. As the night wore on, he began to form a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human emotion and the quiet courage it took to live authentically. The nurse's confessions were not just stories of hardship. They were lessons in empathy, resilience, and moral courage. She revealed the often unseen layers of human experience, demonstrating that care and compassion could be profound even without recognition or reward. He reflected on his own motives, questioning how much of his life had been guided by self-interest, ambition, and calculation, and how little had been informed by genuine concern for others. Listening to her, he felt a shift in perspective, an awakening to the value of sincerity and the impact of simple acts of kindness. Her words reminded him that true influence did not always come from wealth or power, but from the ability to connect with others in honest and meaningful ways. Throughout the night, he remained a silent observer, absorbing every detail of her voice, her tone, and her expressions. He noted how she paused, how she hesitated, and how her eyes conveyed emotions that words alone could not capture. Every moment offered insight into her character, and he realized that this experience was teaching him more than any boardroom lesson ever had. It was revealing the essence of human connection, the importance of empathy, and the power of authenticity. The confessions continued, touching on fears, regrets, hopes, and dreams. She spoke of the longing to make a difference, the desire to be seen and understood, and the struggle to reconcile personal ambition with professional responsibility. The millionaire listened with growing admiration, recognizing the courage it took to acknowledge vulnerability so openly. He understood that her strength lay not in physical prowess or financial acumen, but in her ability to embrace life fully, with honesty and compassion. As dawn approached, the nurse quietly finished her shift, straightening the room, checking monitors, and ensuring that everything was in order. She gave a final glance toward the bed, a gentle sigh escaping her lips, a silent expression of care and concern. The millionaire remained still, reflecting on the depth of her humanity and the lessons he had absorbed. He felt a profound gratitude for her honesty, for the way she had unknowingly offered him a glimpse into the soul of someone who lived with integrity, courage, and empathy. In the quiet aftermath, he realized that this moment, this night of confessions, had changed something within him. He had come to understand that true character was revealed not in public displays or calculated actions, but in private moments of vulnerability and honesty. The nurse had shared her truth without knowing it would be witnessed, and in doing so, had given him a gift far more valuable than any financial insight or strategic advantage. He thought about how he would carry this lesson forward, how it would shape his interactions, decisions, and understanding of the people around him. The experience underscored the importance of listening, observing, and valuing authenticity. It reminded him that every person has a story, a depth of emotion, and a capacity for empathy that can be revealed in unexpected ways. As he drifted into a light, restful sleep, he reflected on the night's revelations, the quiet courage of the nurse, and the profound impact of her honesty. He understood that life's richest lessons often came from places of vulnerability and sincerity, and that true human connection could be found in moments that might otherwise seem ordinary. In that quiet hospital room, the millionaire felt a transformation taking place, a subtle but undeniable shift in perspective that would influence the days to come, shaping not just his understanding of others, but also his own approach to life, trust, and empathy. The days passed slowly, each blending into the next, yet for the millionaire, every moment was filled with silent observation and reflection. After hearing the nurse's heartfelt confessions, he had begun to see the hospital and the people within it in a new light. Each visit, each conversation, each small act of care or neglect revealed layers of human character that had previously gone unnoticed. He remained in his bed pretending to be comatose, yet his mind was alive with understanding, curiosity, and a growing sense of gratitude. It was during one particularly quiet afternoon that the nurse approached him with a stack of charts and a gentle smile. She moved with the usual calm efficiency, yet there was a softness in her eyes that seemed to carry unspoken thoughts and emotions. He watched her as she adjusted the blankets, checked his vitals, and spoke in that familiar, soothing tone. Today, however, there was something different. She lingered a little longer, her gaze thoughtful, her movement slower, as if weighed down by something on her mind. He sensed a tension, a mixture of anxiety and hope, and he waited silently, patient and attentive. Finally, she spoke, though she thought no one could hear her. Her voice was barely a whisper, but he caught every word. She confided that she had been struggling with a decision, one that involved her personal life and the choices she had made for her family and her career. She admitted to fears and doubts, to moments when she questioned her path, and to the hope that she was doing the right thing despite the challenges. Her words were honest, raw, and deeply human. The millionaire felt a surge of empathy and admiration. This woman, who appeared calm and professional to everyone else, carried a world of emotions, responsibilities, and resilience within her. He realized that her confession was not only about personal struggles but also about her feelings toward the patients she cared for. She spoke of the quiet connections she had made, the small victories that brought her joy and the sorrow when she could not help. Listening, he felt a sense of closeness and understanding that transcended the physical barrier between them. He understood that her dedication came from a genuine desire to make a difference, not from obligation or expectation. Her heart was evident in every word, every gesture, every moment of care. The millionaire reflected on his own life and the contrast between his world and hers. He had power, wealth, and influence, yet he had never experienced this kind of quiet heroism, the selfless devotion to others without recognition or reward. He felt a mixture of humility and inspiration, recognizing that true strength was not measured by material success but by character, compassion, and integrity. The nurse's confession had opened his eyes to a deeper understanding of what it meant to be human, to connect with others, and to live with purpose. Over the next few days, he continued to observe her closely, noticing subtle details that revealed even more about her character, how she paused to listen to a patient's fears, how she offered comfort with a gentle touch, how she smiled to ease anxiety without drawing attention to herself. Each action was deliberate yet effortless, a reflection of her genuine care and empathy. He admired her ability to balance professionalism with humanity, to maintain strength while showing vulnerability, to give without expecting anything in return. One evening, as the hospital grew quiet and the soft hum of the machines filled the room, the nurse returned after a long shift. She moved with a weariness that was evident in her posture, yet her face held a calm determination. She spoke softly to herself about the challenges of the day, the difficult decisions, the moments of joy, and the small triumphs that made her work meaningful. The millionaire listened, absorbing every word, every nuance, every emotion conveyed in her voice. He felt a growing sense of connection, a recognition of the depth of her humanity, and an appreciation for the honesty she displayed even when she thought no one was listening. He began to consider revealing himself, to acknowledge that he had been awake all along. But he hesitated, unsure of the right moment, aware of the potential shock and emotional impact on the nurse. He wanted the revelation to be meaningful, to express gratitude for her care and honesty, to honor the trust and integrity she had shown. He thought carefully about how to approach the situation, balancing his desire to reveal the truth with sensitivity and respect. The anticipation grew with each passing day, each interaction, each observation. He watched her continue her work with dedication and compassion, noticing how she influenced the lives of patients and staff alike. Her presence was calming, her actions thoughtful, her words encouraging. He realized that her impact extended far beyond her immediate responsibilities, touching lives in ways that might never be fully recognized. This understanding deepened his respect and admiration, reinforcing his decision to handle the revelation with care. Finally, the moment arrived. He planned a time when the room was quiet, the staff focused on their tasks, and the nurse had a moment to herself. As she approached, he gently shifted his hand, made a small movement, and then opened his eyes. The nurse froze, her eyes widening in shock and disbelief. She had believed him comatose for days, even weeks, and now, in that instant, the truth was revealed. Her reaction was a mixture of surprise, relief, and emotion. She reached out instinctively, her hand trembling slightly as she touched his arm. He spoke softly, thanking her for her care, her honesty, and her compassion. He expressed admiration for her dedication, acknowledging the sacrifices she had made and the courage she displayed every day. His words were heartfelt, sincere, and deeply human, reflecting the insights he had gained from observing her and others. The nurse listened, tears welling in her eyes, a mixture of shock and gratitude. She had acted with integrity, unaware that her actions were being witnessed so closely, and now she understood the impact of her honesty and care. The moment was profound, a shared recognition of human connection, trust, and the value of empathy. The millionaire had revealed not just his awareness but his respect, appreciation, and understanding. In the days that followed, their relationship evolved, grounded in mutual respect, honesty, and a shared understanding of the human experience. The nurse continued her work with dedication, now aware of the profound impact of her actions, while the millionaire reflected on the lessons he had learned about character, trust, and the importance of observing and valuing authenticity. The experience had transformed him, deepening his empathy and reshaping his understanding of human connection. Through this journey, he realized that vulnerability, honesty, and genuine care were powerful forces, capable of bridging gaps, inspiring trust, and revealing the true nature of people. The nurse's confessions, the silent observations, and the eventual revelation had created a profound learning experience, one that would influence his approach to life, relationships, and decision-making. He had witnessed courage, compassion, and integrity firsthand, and the impact of that experience would remain with him forever, shaping not only his actions but also his understanding of what it truly means to be human. The days after revealing himself were filled with quiet reflection for the millionaire. Lying in the hospital bed had been more than an exercise in observation. It had been a journey into the essence of human nature, a study of empathy, trust, and honesty. He had watched the nurse care for him without expectation, listen without judgment, and act with integrity and kindness. Her influence had quietly transformed his perspective, shaping the way he understood the world and the people around him. He began to notice more deeply how small gestures mattered. The way someone offered a smile, how a hand was extended in comfort, or how a word spoken with sincerity could lift a spirit. In the hospital, he had observed these moments every day, often overlooked, and now he recognized their value. People were more than their actions or their words. They were the sum of intentions, emotions, and choices, often hidden beneath layers of fear, hope, or routine. The nurse's honesty had highlighted this truth, and he carried it in his heart. Visitors continued to come, but now he saw them differently. Family members who had seemed distant now held new meaning. Associates who had appeared opportunistic were now evaluated through a lens of understanding, seeing the pressures and limitations that shaped their actions. His own judgments had softened, replaced by a recognition that people were often doing their best within the confines of their circumstances. He realized that empathy was not just about feeling for others, but about seeing them clearly, understanding their struggles, and acknowledging their humanity. The nurse remained at the center of this reflection. Her care had gone beyond the professional. It was deeply human. She had shared her fears, her hopes, her personal struggles, and in doing so, had shown him that authenticity could be transformative. Her presence had been a mirror, reflecting what mattered most: honesty, compassion, and the courage to be vulnerable. These lessons would guide him long after he left the hospital. One afternoon, he found himself thinking about the changes he wanted to make in his life. Wealth and influence had always defined him, but now he understood that true fulfillment came from connection, integrity, and purpose. He wanted to engage with the world in a more meaningful way, to recognize the efforts of those who acted with honesty and kindness, and to build relationships rooted in trust and respect. The experience had shifted his priorities, showing him the power of human connection over material gain. He also reflected on the importance of listening. In pretending to be unconscious, he had learned to hear more than just words. He had listened to tone, pauses, gestures, and the unspoken emotions beneath the surface. He realized that listening with attention and openness revealed more than observation alone. It uncovered truth, fostered understanding, and deepened empathy. This realization would guide his interactions, whether in business, family, or friendships. The hospital days, once filled with tension and uncertainty, had become a space of learning and insight. The millionaire understood that life was fragile, unpredictable, and fleeting. The accident had stripped away assumptions, forcing him to confront vulnerability, dependence, and mortality. In this space, he had discovered resilience, patience, and the extraordinary value of ordinary acts of care. The nurse had embodied these qualities, demonstrating that strength and humanity could coexist even in the most challenging circumstances. As he prepared for discharge, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the nurse who had unknowingly guided him toward these insights, for the staff who had carried out their duties with care, and for the family and friends who had shown concern in their own ways. Every interaction, whether seemingly minor or deeply significant, had contributed to a broader understanding of life and human nature. He had witnessed courage, empathy, and integrity in action, and these lessons would remain with him forever. Upon leaving the hospital, the millionaire carried a new perspective into the world. He approached his life with a renewed sense of purpose, seeking to engage authentically, to value honesty, and to appreciate the hidden efforts of those around him. His relationships were transformed, not just by gratitude but by a deeper understanding of character, trust, and empathy. The lessons learned in silence from observation and reflection had reshaped his priorities and actions. He maintained contact with the nurse, respecting boundaries but valuing the connection that had formed through honesty and care. Their relationship symbolized the lessons he had learned: trust, respect, and the enduring power of genuine human connection. He also extended these lessons to others, treating colleagues, friends, and family with a mindfulness born from observation, empathy, and reflection. The millionaire's journey from accident to recovery had been more than a physical healing. It was a transformation of perspective and understanding. He had learned that life's true value lay not in wealth, power, or control, but in the ability to connect, to care, and to recognize the integrity and humanity in others. The nurse's confessions, his silent observations, and the eventual revelation had created a profound education in empathy, compassion, and moral courage. In the quiet moments of reflection, he often thought back to the days spent in the hospital, the lessons learned from stillness and observation, and the courage of those who acted with honesty and care. He realized that life's richest experiences were often found in the ordinary, the unseen, and the heartfelt actions of others. These insights would continue to shape his choices, his relationships, and his understanding of what it truly means to be human. He understood now that true leadership and influence were not measured by wealth or authority, but by the ability to inspire, support, and uplift others. The experience had taught him humility, patience, and the importance of recognizing and valuing the integrity and dedication of those around him. Every gesture of kindness, every act of honesty, and every moment of empathy was a reminder of what mattered most. As he moved forward in life, he carried these lessons with him, committed to living with greater awareness, compassion, and authenticity. He knew that the journey he had undertaken in the hospital, from vulnerability to insight, had changed him fundamentally. It had revealed the profound impact of human connection, the strength of character, and the value of observing, listening, and understanding others. These truths would guide him in every decision, every interaction, and every relationship for the rest of his life. Even after returning home from the hospital, the millionaire felt the weight of his recent experiences pressing gently on his mind. Life had moved on outside with the usual bustle of meetings, phone calls, and obligations, yet inside him, everything had shifted. The days of lying silently in a hospital bed, pretending to be comatose, had left him with insights and a new perspective he could never have gained in his old life. The patience, observation, and empathy he had developed in that quiet room now guided him in ways both profound and subtle. He spent the first morning at home quietly walking through the rooms of his house, noticing the small details he had never truly appreciated before. The sunlight falling through the windows, the faint smell of polished wood, the way the walls reflected sound differently in the empty house. All these small details felt alive, as if he were seeing them for the first time. He thought about the nurse, about her honesty, her care, and her strength, and he understood that the lessons learned in that hospital room were not bound to that place. They were universal, ready to shape every interaction he would have going forward. Business meetings began again, but he approached them differently. He listened more than he spoke, noticing the tone of colleagues' voices, the hesitations, the excitement, the unspoken concerns. Decisions were no longer made solely on data, profits, or strategy. He considered the human impact, the sincerity of those involved, and the long-term consequences for people as well as for business. His colleagues noticed the change. He was calmer, more patient, and more empathetic. Even when negotiations were tense, he maintained a sense of quiet understanding, seeking resolution rather than dominance. One afternoon, he received a letter from the hospital. The nurse had written to him, sharing her thoughts since the accident, expressing gratitude for his trust and the acknowledgement of her care. She reflected on her own journey, the lessons she had learned, and the hope that she had inspired him as much as he had inspired her. Reading her words, he felt a connection that transcended their professional relationship, a bond built on mutual respect, honesty, and shared humanity. He realized that genuine recognition could foster a deeper sense of purpose and motivation in others, something wealth and authority alone could never achieve. He began to apply this understanding in his personal life as well, Family members who had once frustrated him with misunderstandings or differing opinions were now approached with patience. He listened more intently, valuing their perspectives and seeking to understand rather than to correct. Friends noticed the change too. He was more present, more engaged, and more attuned to the emotional undercurrents that had previously gone unnoticed. He understood now that human connection was not a luxury, but a necessity. He also dedicated time to giving back in ways that were meaningful, rather than performative. The nurse's example had taught him that small acts of care, attention, and empathy could have profound effects. He supported community projects not just with funding, but with involvement, showing interest in the people impacted and learning from their experiences. Each initiative was approached with humility and genuine intent, guided by the lessons of observation, reflection, and understanding he had learned while pretending to be comatose. The millionaire's health continued to recover, but he remained mindful of the fragility of life. He practiced gratitude daily, acknowledging not just the grand events but the small, ordinary moments that made life rich and meaningful. He valued the people around him, not for what they could provide but for who they were, recognizing that every individual had struggles, hopes, and stories that deserved attention and respect. As months passed, he maintained contact with the nurse, keeping a respectful friendship grounded in mutual admiration and understanding. She continued her work at the hospital, inspired by the validation he had given her, and he found joy in observing the ripple effects of her dedication on others. Their relationship became a symbol of how honesty, care, and authenticity could create connections that were enduring and transformative. The millionaire also began mentoring younger colleagues and aspiring professionals, sharing not just knowledge of business, but lessons about character, empathy, and human interaction. He emphasized the importance of observing, listening, and understanding people in depth, rather than making snap judgments based on appearances or assumptions. He encouraged them to recognize and value acts of integrity and to approach life with both compassion and curiosity. Even in moments of solitude, he reflected on the lessons of the hospital room. He realized that life's richness lay in the unseen, the quiet, and the ordinary. The moments when people acted with honesty, courage, and empathy without expectation of recognition. These moments were powerful and transformative, and he carried them as a guiding principle in his interactions and decisions. The millionaire's approach to leadership, relationships, and life had evolved profoundly. He found that influence was most effective when paired with understanding, compassion, and patience. Decisions became more balanced, communication more nuanced, and outcomes more humane. People around him responded positively, sensing the authenticity in his actions and the care with which he engaged with them. He also made time for personal growth and reflection, understanding that continual observation, empathy, and self-awareness were essential to living fully. He journaled his experiences, noting moments of insight, emotional resonance, and connections that revealed deeper truths. This practice strengthened his awareness, helping him to maintain balance between ambition and humanity. Social interactions became opportunities for genuine engagement. He listened with intent, asked thoughtful questions, and responded with consideration. He found that even brief conversations could carry depth, and that attention and presence were gifts he could offer freely. People responded with openness and trust, reinforcing the power of genuine human connection. He applied these lessons to challenges in business as well. Conflicts were addressed with empathy, negotiations conducted with fairness, and strategies developed with consideration for people as well as outcomes. He discovered that this approach, grounded in understanding and authenticity, not only yielded better results but also strengthened relationships and fostered trust. Through it all, he never forgot the nurse and the quiet lessons she had imparted, often unintentionally through her care, honesty, and dedication. She had shown him that integrity, compassion, and authenticity were invaluable, that observation and reflection could reveal profound truths, and that human connection was the foundation of a meaningful life. Her influence had extended far beyond the hospital room, shaping the way he approached the world and the people within it. In time, the millionaire felt a sense of completion, a recognition that he had emerged from the experience transformed. The accident, the hospital stay, and the act of pretending to be comatose had been a catalyst for personal growth, empathy, and insight. He had learned to see people clearly, to value authenticity, and to act with integrity and compassion. These lessons would guide him for the rest of his life, ensuring that his wealth and power were tempered with wisdom, understanding, and humanity. The journey from vulnerability to awareness, from observation to transformation, had been profound. He understood that life's true richness lay in the depth of human connection, in the courage to be honest, and in the capacity to care without expectation. The experiences in the hospital, the relationships formed, and the insights gained had forever changed the way he viewed himself, others, and the world around him. And as he moved forward, he did so with a heart more open, a mind more attentive, and a life richer in meaning and purpose than he had ever known.